Has everybody got their crypto kitties?
No.
Dude, that thing is destroying Ethereum.
Certainly is.
CryptoKitties is the best argument for it's amazing. First cats took over the internet, now they're taking over the blockchain.
It's always cats in the end.
That's right. Well, that's why we have brought on so many category theorists into RChain. Oh, so that was just awful. That was a dad joke.
Well, we're starting the stream up now, so you guys can get rolling.
Okay. We have a ton of updates to talk through. So there's some business updates, and there are technical updates, and we have a very nice proposal for namespaces that I want the community to weigh in on. So Mike's going to take some time to walk through that. Maybe we'll do that after we do some basic technical updates. So let me. I'm just inventing this, inventing the agenda on the fly here. So let's do this. How about if Meta, if you're up for it, we can give some technical updates that way, and then have Mike talk through the namespaces stuff, and then I'll talk about some things that have to do with schedule and exchanges, and then we'll move into some of the business discussion. So if that's okay with everyone, let's structure our time that way. Does that sound like a decent use of our time?
Sounds great to me.
Awesome. Then take it away, Meta.
Sounds great. So we are currently in Sprint 6. We're making fantastic progress on all fronts. I'm very pleased to report that. I will be meeting with Mike and Tim tomorrow to actually discuss that we are further along in the VM than my project plan is describing. And Tim is going to be taking some time out next sprint to refine the project plan, and so we can get some really firm estimates on when the virtual machine will be ready. Kyle is making tremendous progress on the compiler side with his team. We have put together a release definition for a .1 release of the Rolang SDK. I met with Kyle and Greg today to talk about some of the example contracts we want to code up and deliver as part of the Rolang SDK .1 package. We also have people that will be working on, whom I'll introduce later today, that will be working on getting the C++ version of Rosette, a few enhancements here and there to make the experience of authoring contracts in Rolang and then running them, compiling them with the compiler and then running them in the VM, a very smooth and easy experience. So we've got a few features that have been well fleshed out by Kyle and the virtual machine team. So we're going to bundle that all up, hopefully, and deliver something. I'm thinking in January and feel pretty optimistic about that date. We also have dev done on the node, first flavor of the node, which is going to be a demonstration of the communications protocols that Chris has been working on. He's completed his coding tasks. He expects they'll be done by tomorrow. Then we're going to roll into documentation and packaging. So lots of great, just tremendous work happening on all fronts. I don't think I've left anyone out. Pretty much on every front, we're making great progress. We have 2 new developers that have joined the team. I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. The first one I'm going to introduce is Keith McQueen. who will be joining the virtual machine team. Keith is going to be making initially some of the C++ enhancements to Rosette for the Rolang.1 SDK package. So Keith, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the community, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Just happy to be here and learning a lot about this and digging into the code and having fun.
Awesome.
Great. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you.
The other individual, other quote-unquote developer we have is Jeremy. Jeremy's joining us as a DevOps role. So he's going to be really instrumental in maintaining and enhancing our continuous integration. If we want to ship on a Docker image, Jeremy's going to be the one that's going to configure that Docker image, automate the packaging processes, all of the things that make development go smoothly, configuration management, source code management, all those wonderful things that DevOps entails. So Jeremy, you have the floor. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Jeremy Busk. Again, just new, just started last week, kind of built up initially just kind of the infrastructure, both the Cisco and then some servers and stuff, trying to get a cluster for virtualization and stuff going. And then just every time I start a new project, just kind of working through all that and optimizing it for the situation and stuff like that with the technology available. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And then just trying to get caught up on everything. I'm not a Bitcoin guy at all like that. And so I'm, or blockchain. And so I'm just kind of getting started up on that. And so, yeah, I did my first Bitcoin transaction getting in the co-op yesterday, and just getting kind of used to the technology. I came from, we were all Microsoft, so I've used Google Apps a little bit, but it's been a while, so I'm just getting used to that. And yeah, I just want to support you guys any way I can. Background real quick. Yeah, I don't know how much you want, but worked, did classified processing for a while. And then was with a telecom for like 12 years and stuff like that. Did a lot of that. And then out of there and back in here. And I'm really excited. I've done startup stuff before where I was at 12 years ago. And it's fun, the energy and the movement and stuff like that. I'm excited to be part of it again. Great to be here. And I told Meta, if you guys ever need anything, always call me day or night, anytime, and I'll make it happen, whatever it is I want. Call, text, and stuff like that is my preference. If the other stuff, as I get used to the other stuff, if I don't respond, those two, I will always get back to you, especially call. And let me know whatever I can do to help you. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Welcome. Good to have you on board.
We appreciate the enthusiasm and the willingness to be on call, especially me.
Yeah, you need to have that. That's kind of my role. So you got to be there to help everyone. So
we are a global team, so having your willingness to be available globally is wonderful. We really, really appreciate that. So Mike, you've got your namespace document. I'm going to give you the floor and you can share that. Is that okay, Greg, if we dive right into that right now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mike, are you on the line?
Yep, I'm here. I just wanted to point out one cool thing about Keith. He's a pilot, so he's got some fun hobbies that he enjoys.
Awesome. Oh, wow. So maybe he can take us up in the air sometime.
Maybe so. Yeah, let me screen share here. And then, there we go. Right, so namespaces, oh wait.
Is the link available for other people to read after?
Sure, you can find it, the page here is the namespace discussion notes. You can find it using the search box.
I'll copy and paste. I'll put the URL in the chat for everyone.
Thanks, and maybe also in the Discord channel.
You got it.
Thanks.
So just starting with a bit of theory about namespaces in the row calculus that Rolang is built on. A name is a quoted process. Sorry, is there a chat thing here? Oh, thank you, Patrick, for posting the link in the chat. So Rolang expands this idea. It allows not only quoted processes, but private names and URIs. And private names turn out to be interesting. So I'm going to jump down to the footnote here at the bottom. In the row calculus, all names are forageable. So at best, it's a crypto caps platform. And to find out what that means, you can follow this link over to Mark Miller's page on distributed capability and the question of confinement as to when you can prevent a process from talking to somebody else. So in row calculus, you can construct all of the names, just that you can write a process that iterates through all of the possible names and may eventually stumble on it. Now, in row calculus, we use some types to restrict what names it can talk on. It does have a capability-like layer to it. But if you know bits, if you can serialize your channel to bits and leak those bits to someone else who is able to talk on arbitrary or at least a wider set of names than you are, it's possible that you can use them as a proxy and do communications over names that you are not otherwise allowed to leak. So that's the confinement problem. On the blockchain, however, all names are not only forgeable but public. There's not even a notion of keeping a name secret. So in a language like Java or JavaScript or pretty much anything with lexical closures, you can declare a new variable within the closure and then keep that secret from the clients that are interacting with it. You can't do that on the blockchain without extra stuff. So Rolang includes the new keyword from PyCalculus. And when you want to deploy a contract, the author of the contract has to submit, in the simplest case, source code. There are some things that we can do a bunch of compilation beforehand, but there's at least one step where the author submits some code and then the node processes it before deploying it. The reason why is that names generated by the new keyword will be contained in a private namespace, and I offer this as a suggestion. This could be an integer, it just needs to be some countable set. UUIDs prevent, well, vastly reduce the chance of collision. So a node would need a good randomness source for generating a random UUID. But the names are opaque to processes, or I guess we could also prefix them with some kind of unique node identifier. But anyway, the names are opaque to processes. You can't look inside of a private name, take it apart, transmit it via bits. It's very much like in Java, you can't get the integer that refers to the memory location at which an object is stored from an object reference. And even if you could, you couldn't construct an object reference out of that integer. So even though this thing is vaguely like an integer in that it's countable and serializable, there's nothing you can do in the language to construct this thing. New will give you a random one that you can't control. So once you've got that, then it becomes a true OCAPS platform. Right, so then we're back up here. URIs are a class of identifiers. It's a uniform resource identifier. URLs are a certain kind of URI, and URNs are a different kind of URI. URLs are the ones that have enough information to locate the resource more than merely recognize it. URNs are just a name for something. So in Rolang, names are what we send messages on. So we can use URNs for doing communications either within a node or on the blockchain. URLs, on the other hand, have these schemas here with very clear directions on how to use the protocol so that this locator puts you in touch with the resource. So this is the kind of thing we would like to be able to write in Rolang, that we say, I want to open up a session with the web server at RChain Co-op. So I send it a return channel, and it sends me the send and receive channels on which I'll send requests and it'll respond to them. We could use FTP here, we could use Gopher, I guess, any number of schemas. Those are all well defined. For URNs, there's no protocol associated with it. So the only thing we do with URNs is use them as names in the RChain programming. Now, namespaces in the context of Rolang are slightly different than what you'll see in the RFCs for URLs and URNs that are linked here. For Rolang, a namespace is an expression in some language that denotes a set of names. And so in Rolang, there is a pattern language for talking about collections of terms, collections of processes. But those don't work particularly well for describing URNs. And so I'm proposing that we use these express-style path expressions. Express is a Node.js package that's popular among them. They're used for routing requests that the Node server replies to. And this language is basically regular expressions with the ability to do named groups. That's what this :foo is doing. And the default pattern for a group is everything but slash. So it makes splitting up a path by slashes very easy. But in the end, it just turns into a regular expression. You can modify it to be an arbitrary regular expression within the language. So it's no more or less powerful than regular expressions. It's just a slightly different syntax that makes it easy to split on paths. URNs have a URN namespace, and there's a whole bunch of different organizations. Sorry, did someone have a question? No, okay. So there's a list of organizations here that say if you have URN:3GPP, this is the RFC that describes how it's done, and ISBN, for instance, is managed by the ISBN agency. So what I'm proposing is that we have a Rolang that would fit in between those two, and we would, RChain Co-op would be the managing organization for that namespace. So we've got URN:Rolang:, and then we have a whole bunch of strings that we can talk about how to give formats for them. I'm proposing that one of the formats has IANA as the next thing, and then it will be a domain name followed by a path. In order to use this registry that I'll describe in a minute, you have to prove ownership of that domain. If you don't own a domain, there'd be this different namespace, UUID, and you just generate a UUID, and if it hasn't been claimed, then you get it. So most URNs, everything outside of the Rolang namespace that I call RNS here, are all considered public names. Anyone can construct them, anyone can use them, anyone can send or listen on them. If you want to be the only process that can listen on a particular name, which you want to for the most part, you don't want other contracts intercepting messages meant for you, then you need to use this registry. The registry is a special contract like the Rev Wallet contract that runs on every node. And this snippet here is illustrating a dynamic registration request. So in a contract, it's registering a new name. This expression here that isn't yet in the spec, but will be, creates a pair of messages. One way of thinking about the pair of messages is that it implicitly creates a forwarder. So it listens on the output channel and sends on the input channel. But in any other process, input can only be listened to, and that's happening down here. We listen on input, and output can only be sent to. Then this register call says, whenever anyone sends to this address here, forward it to output. This is an alias for output. If someone tries to listen to this address, it will be a type error because output can only be sent to. So then you register the output address. Anyone who sends stuff here, you receive the stuff here. Now this expression means that they'll send you a message on output. These two variables in the path also get sent along. And so this is a tuple or a map or some kind of structure that contains all of the information you need, both the message that was sent and the bindings of the variables that it was sent on. Let's see. Oh yeah, one last thing. Over the wire, quoted processes will be encoded like this. URN : Rolang : process : then the % escaped source code. But they can't be forged in Rolang. That is, you can't just put a backtick and write this thing and expect it to work. That'll be a type error. The only way you can construct one of these is by using the @p syntax. If you could construct one of these by hand, or one of the private names, I guess, yeah, this one, or one of these by hand, that would break the object capability security guarantees. So there's still some work here to be done in the specifics of the API, in the specifics of how to construct URNs. Perhaps we only allow people to construct things of this form or this form. Something to talk about and discuss, but this is the skeleton of the proposal. If there are any comments, I'd be happy to address them now.
Well, I mean, I just want to say thank you very much. Like, I've had a chance to review this a couple of times, and I very much appreciate the work that went into this. As you and I talked, we really want to own the routing spec and semantics, but beginning from where you began is a reasonable place to begin, rather than beginning from a blank slate.
Hey, you're still sharing. Mike, you're still sharing your desktop.
I mean, I think this is a really, really good, good beginning, and hopefully it makes it clear to the community what our thinking is here, and how it relates to the registry of contracts with respect to the blockchain and namespaces. So I believe it ties ties a knot, you know, at a place where people hadn't we hadn't been clear about how everything connected. So hopefully this gives some more specificity for folks.
I think this really answers some concerns I had about privacy. I'm not sure that it answers them all.
Cool. Well, Jim, please feel free to put your comments in Discord, or is there a comment? I can't remember. Do we have a place for comments on the wiki?
Yes, I believe so. Members
Okay.
should be able to comment.
Great. Very
If
good.
not, they can ping me if they run into an issue.
Awesome. Okay.
Well, I think it really helped for him to show this, so I can understand your answers to my questions.
Good. Good. Very, very good. Okay. Unless there's more comments from the community, we can leave that one there. Happy to continue if there's more questions, but we do have other stuff to get through that might take up some time. So going once, going twice. All right. Well, we'll move on. Thanks again, Mike, and I'm looking forward to more comments from the community on the proposal. All right. So the next piece of the puzzle is that we've been engaged since July in conversations with various exchanges. I'm not going to name the exchanges at this time because we don't have solid agreements, but there's been a general sympathetic ear to setting up agreements for early releases and early deployments into these exchanges. And these are fairly large exchanges with respectable volumes. And so the idea is that we want to get the bits for the nodes into the hands of the engineers who are maintaining these exchanges, so that they can familiarize themselves with standing up an RChain node, and also these exchanges have APIs. And so if the node supports the APIs, then we should be able to slot directly into the exchanges so that people can do exchange, can use these exchanges to trade Rev and other token that are associated with the RChain network. So the thought is that as these relationships solidify, we make this we make this sort of the most significant milestone between here and Mercury, is making sure the exchanges get the bits and feel comfortable running them, and feel comfortable with our process in the case that they run into any problems, that they feel that they can reach out to us and get any issues resolved in a timely fashion. And then the other piece of this, of course, is that the exchanges have fairly significant test harnesses, and so it will definitely put our bits through their paces if we slot into those existing deployment situations. So this is the aim, and we're gearing up to kind of figure out exactly what this means. But I'm very excited because I think this is one of the most significant opportunities for RChain, is to, make sure that our bits get into the hands of the exchanges, and that they have a really good experience with our working code. So let me just stop there and see if there's any comments about this.
Greg, do you anticipate these nodes to having any other interoperability functions, such as being able to talk with Ethereum for either redemption purposes with Rock to Rev or any other integrations like that?
So we don't know whether we want to do this at the node level or to allow the exchanges to, provide some level of functionality here. But currently, we want to keep the bar as low as we can, so that we, because there's going to be lots of room for interoperability in the next release and the release after that. But if it turns out we can hit our goals and we've got room to go after sort of node to node interoperability for Mercury, that's an obvious desideratum. But I'd like not to add that to our plate if we can avoid it. But it's a great question. I hear where you're coming from.
How does this conversation coincide with the co-op stance of not actively seeking to go on exchanges?
So this is different, right? We're not talking about putting the rock on exchanges. We're talking about nodes that have Rev available as staking. At that point, once we hit Rev, we absolutely want to be working with the exchanges. Rock is an interim token. Whatever markets exist around Rock are really precursors to markets that are associated with the Rev, and we fully support a vibrant and robust markets around Rev, because at that point we will have demonstrated the utility of the Rev. With Rock, demonstrating the utility of the Rock is a tougher call. It doesn't serve to run the virtual machine right now. Rev absolutely will serve to run the virtual machine, and so we will have clear demonstration to anyone that largely this token is there for people to run the virtual machine. And now the exchanges function as a mechanism by which those software access tokens can be distributed, right? So from our point of view, the exchanges become a distribution mechanism, which is a natural distribution mechanism, and the same kind of distribution mechanism that Ethereum has availed itself of, right? So from that point of view, we're in compliance and conform it with all the things that we've represented to both the membership and to the regulators, and we're also following an industry standard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
And once you get up on an exchange with Rev, I presume rocks will be on the exchange also.
Yeah, I don't know what the rock market will be like at that point, right? We're going to swap everyone out, right? So if you want Rev, you can bring your rock supply to us, and we'll hand you back the corresponding amount of rock. And then after that, it's hard to understand what the value of the rock is.
Well, for some community members, having rock on an exchange would be a convenience, and they're considering getting up a fund. I think 25,000 rock for what's the name of the exchange? Seemed like a good exchange.
I don't know.
But in any case, that's
the kind of thing.
Has nothing to do with that activity.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with that activity. This is all about getting the Rev. The real point here is to get the nodes in the hands of the exchange engineers so that they can pound the hell out of it and raise any issues before we go live with Mercury. That's the real value with respect to our engineering desiderata. And then there's a secondary value, which is that it becomes a distribution mechanism for the software access token.
Greg, another question. Will there be a test net-like phase or something slightly before this where internal folks can do some experimenting as well?
Absolutely, yes.
Where should people look for information about that? Basically, how to download a node and play with it.
Yeah, so that's a great question.
I can answer that if you'd like.
Please.
It is our intention that once we have bits that the community can download, that there will be sites off of RChain.coop that will talk about the release, with documentation on how to download it, what it does, what it doesn't do, et cetera, et cetera. It is not our intention to have our end users go to GitHub and try to download code and compile it. Ew. That is not that developers can't do that, but users will not be put in a position to do that. If they desire to get the code, by all means, it's open source, but we will have a package that will contain within it everything you need to run an RChain node hands-free, quote unquote.
The binaries.
Now, in the work study, we've run the compiler and the resulting code on Rosette. We can still do that, right?
I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to do that. Absolutely. I mean, that would be part and parcel. So if I download the RChain package, this is what I envision it includes. It will include the virtual machine. It will include the compiler. It will include debugging tools. It'll include sample contracts. It'll include documentation. It'll include obviously the node software, right? That's all bundled up in the virtual machine. And it'll include an editor, right? And debugging tools for you to author rolling contracts, and then you would compile them and run them. Just like you do, Java is a great way to look at it, right? You have a virtual machine, you've got a way to write Java code, you've got a way to compile Java code and a way to run it.
So as far as the editor, it's not our business to write an editor. My intention is to use, for example, a shared folder between the Docker and your host system. So you edit stuff and save it in that folder, and then you can compile it within the Docker at its command line. Any of the dev tools like editors and stuff that isn't in the compiler and VM would be part of plans for other work, other projects that Pyrofex may undertake.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I'm trying to lay out what the user experience could be, right? What it would look like. So you guys can imagine how users will interact with the software we deliver.
I mean, just assuming what platforms might be initially supported, probably Unix, Linux, and Mac, probably.
I believe so, yes. I don't know about Windows yet. We haven't gotten that far down the rabbit hole, but definitely Linux for sure. And probably Macintosh. We will be shipping a Docker image is one of the options, right? We'll create a Docker image, we'll create an AWS image. So we're trying to make it as easy. The goal is to make it as easy as possible for our end users to have a fully functioning working node and all the tools to author and compile and run contracts. That is our intention.
Cool. These are all great questions, and it's really, I hope the community gets more and more excited about the plans for the release. You're right, Meta. I mean, you and Nash and I exchanged a few emails last week, and Nash raised a great point about, do we want to release for Windows natively? as opposed to just release a Docker image. And there are some advantages to that. So I've been kind of deliberating over the trade-offs there, and
Yep.
you know, I think once you know the three of us get on on one page about that, then we can let the community know what the decision is.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. And I mean, you know, and if there are community members that are heavily vested in this, you know, please come forward and give us your guidance. So we have a few more things to do. I want to introduce someone. I've reached out to Jonathan Kochmer to join the co-op and help help me follow up on a lot of the leads that we got from the platform co-op work. So there's literally just too many opportunities there for the co-op for me to follow up on. And so Jonathan is going to be taking that on as a part of a larger remit. But I just wanted to introduce the community to Jonathan. Hello, Jonathan. Why don't you say a few words about yourself?
Hello, this is Jonathan. I'm sitting on a back porch in Olympia. I don't know if you can see the forest back there. My background academically is philosophy of science, evolutionary biology, and biostatistics. I was an early employee at the National Science Foundation Network, helping to propagate the infrastructure and backbone of the internet from Alaska to Oregon to Montana. I was also an early employee at Amazon, where I fulfilled many roles, including information architecture and data warehousing infrastructure development. My most recent and proudest achievement was as Director of Research and Development at a nonprofit called Earth Economics, where I led the construction of the world's largest computational engine for the calculation of the economic benefits of ecosystem services. And that platform is now being used by the United Nations, the EPA, and I think about 35 different countries now, and has helped preserve, I don't know the exact figure, but millions of square miles of nature because of its economic benefits. And in the course of a lot of this work, I was a liaison for outside organizations, and will hopefully be drawing upon those skills and experiences and networks to help RChain find viable partners. Interestingly, Greg's first request was that I contact Trevor from the New School, and very serendipitously, he reached out to me first at 2:30 in the morning last night. So I love when Lady Serendipity comes calling. It's an indication that I'm in the right place at the right time. So I think that's enough about me.
Thank you, Jonathan. That was a great introduction. Very impressive resume. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to being able to have the bandwidth to follow up with the platform co-op stuff. And
can I mention one more thing?
Yeah.
Of interest to Greg as well, because of the possible value of music platforms being an attractor towards adoption of RChain. I was a professional musician for 10 years and have released 4 records of my own and maybe 30 records of other artists, and even got into the Grammy process with one of my records, which was really sweet.
That's awesome. Well, I have to say, I have heard 2 Loons for Tea, and I'm a big fan.
Thank you, Greg.
That's
great.
cool, John. Welcome to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. A round of welcomes. So we have only a few minutes left, and I have to get ready for the airport to head off to London to go hang out with Imogene. I just wanted to say that the board met on Friday and Monday to discuss some proposals on the table. So Pyrofex has put a deal on the table, a white paper and a term sheet. and the board has gone through or is going through a deliberation process on that, and we're very excited about this opportunity. And if people want information about that, then please come forward, and we'll make all of that available. The other thing that we considered was the deal from Medora, and what has come out of that is wanting to make sure that other members are treated fairly. So we can't prevent anyone from putting a deal before the co-op. I just want to say that up. Like anyone can come to the co-op and say, hey, we want to buy a certain amount of rock, or make some kind of deal with respect to the co-op's treasury. And then, our fiduciary duty is to go back to the board and to the membership and say, does this deal make sense? And so obviously we are considering the Medora deal, and I know that other members of the community have come forward, and if they put a deal with the same level of specificity on the table, so the Medora terms are quite clear, both in terms of the rate, the volume, and the time frame in which the deal is good. So any deal like that comes forward to the co-op, we will of course have to consider for the the benefit of the co-op and the membership. We want to really button down these kinds of considerations of to limit this to the end of the year, because after that the membership has spoken about limitations with respect to the sale of rock, and I want to stay on the on the north side of that. I want the co-op's behavior and execution to be squeaky clean with respect to the membership's will here. So any sort of consideration or deal like that after after January 1st of 2018 is going to be limited by the 200 million rock cap that the membership set. So if people want to come forward or feel that it would be fair to open for the co-op to consider such deals, now would be the time, because after that the co-op's hands are the co-op's behavior is much more circumscribed. So in no way are we soliciting anything here. We're not soliciting offers, but it's my responsibility to say anyone can come forward, and then the co-op has to consider the deal. I also want to make it clear that our cap for the private sale was 15 million. We raised 10, so there's still 5 million USD worth of rock at 20 cents a rock that is available, or that we would like to have filled. Having filled that amount, filled that book, would make it so that we're quite comfortable about hitting the Mercury milestone. So from our point of view, there is a $5 million headroom there that we could potentially clear off in the between now and the end of the year. And then after that, our noses are to the grindstone, and we would much prefer to be looking at making sure that we hit all the milestones to Mercury, and that Mercury is a huge success, rather than to be looking at these kinds of deals. So I have one more major thing to talk about, but I'm going to stop there and check and see if people have understood what I've said, if there are any questions or comments about that.
I'll just say that I'm really excited to, try and get, whether it's through us or through other members in the community, co-op funded to the 15 mil figure from the private sale. I have a question that's maybe related, but maybe a little tangential. It's a request maybe that Lisa, when she offers financials, can she also describe how Pyrofex developers and RChain developers are choosing to be compensated? I think it's a big indicator to the community to see that developers want to be compensated in rock, because that really aligns everyone's incentives with the co-op. I know it was originally the intention that the Pyrofex dev team get hired by co-op. I just want to make sure that all the developers kind of are aligned with co-op, and it would be really a positive sign and signal to community even if that's not the case right now, because heretofore rock has been kind of stable. But now that we have things coming out, it'd be great to see that the dev team, more of them wanting to be compensated in rock versus US dollar, BTC, and ETH.
Thank you for raising that issue, Jacob. That's an issue that's very much on my mind, and very much an issue of active discussion. So we're sort of working that out. The main thing, of course, was that prior to this time, the asset wasn't as liquid as it might need to be to put food on the table. But moving forward, it makes a certain amount of sense to offer a percentage of compensation in rock, and we're just working out the mechanics of that now, and we'll let the community know, sort of the range of mechanics that seem workable, and offer, get some feedback from the community on this. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We very much support an alignment of interest that way, and we very much want to. As a form of compensation, not just for the Pyrofex developers, but for all of the people that are involved in co-op activity. So hopefully that addresses your question or comment.
Oh yeah, awesome. Thanks so much.
Sure. And then so any other questions or comments about what I said about the proposal from Medora or the other things that were in front of the board? Okay, so the next piece is that a group has come forward and floated the idea of starting another application incubator, and they're interested in the co-op supporting this. So we're looking over the terms of the deal now, and the team that has come forward to do this. So this effectively would be something like another holdings, RChain Ventures or something along those lines. And so they are pursuing this aggressively. And the more we know the details of this, the more we'll let the community know. But this is something that's going to come before the board as a decision that we can hopefully make again before the end of the year. So the thing that is interesting and important to me about this deal, well, there are two main things. One is that there are simply too many opportunities to pursue, that there's so much room in terms of the opportunities to pursue that having two groups pursuing some kind of split of the opportunities makes a lot of sense. There's plenty of room for people to for different application incubators to succeed here without stepping on each other's toes. So that feels healthy to me, because it means that you could have a group, for example, focusing on acceleration and enterprise opportunities. So taking existing projects and helping them get on to RChain, existing blockchain projects or or nascent projects inside the enterprise, and helping them get onto RChain. That would make a lot of sense. I mean, heck, if there was a group that was just looking at supply chain management and other kinds of enterprise applications, that's a large enough market to keep people occupied for a very long time. And then, you know, maybe another group is looking at entertainment or media and entertainment. That's already a large enough market. There's plenty of opportunities. So it makes sense in terms of just carving up the space and being able to be effective, more effective by having greater focus. That feels natural and good. And then the other side of this is that it provides a way to have a disciplined spend down of the treasury. I think a lot of investors have looked at the sizable treasury and said, well, doesn't that put co-op in this kind of centralized position? And what we're doing is we're looking at this as a part of a both tactical and strategic approach to spending down the treasury so that everyone's opportunity is maximized, and we don't end up with a centralized position for co-op, but rather that, you know, we're creating an ecosystem of mutually supportive enterprises. So that's another piece that has recently come, an offer that's come forward to the co-op, and I just want to get some feedback to let people know that that's happening and see what their thoughts are.
Do it
Can you
immediately.
speak a little bit about the funding model for a second incubator, as you put it? Does it come with its own revenue stream, or?
Right. So the proposal that's on the table is the group that's putting the proposal together believes that they can land a bunch of capital to supplement a investment made by the co-op. So their proposal is the co-op put some number of rock into this fund, and then they also get other liquid assets into the fund from a number of VCs and other kinds of interested parties in this space. And then with the combined assets, they use that to fund applications in the space.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a very exciting development, right? Because I think it will only improve the visibility of it will only improve the liquidity of the rock. It will, or the position of the rock. It will only improve the scope of requirements for the RChain network and software, and it will potentially greatly grow the number of applications that are running on top of the platform. So it improves the adoption. So that to me seems like net positive all the way around. But I think the biggest concerns might be, is this competitive with holdings? And the question is there enough space in this market to support two sort of incubator accelerator efforts like this? And it would seem to me, based upon the numbers and the depth of the market, that there clearly is, but we want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think there's certainly room for hundreds of partnerships. I mean, basically, we have to rewrite everything. This is it's almost a clean slate we're starting with here, and there's so many cooperations coming together. The people in this space that maybe starting to get inspired about RChain, but they're they're spiritually and intellectually in the space we are in tech we trust and decentralized systems. I mean, it seems like a great idea to foster these kind of relationships. Now, I may want to. It might be a good idea in some cases, to match funds rather than having outright grants. But we have a mechanism already where if somebody is doing something that is on the road to RChain, they can get funding through the co-op. Now, I guess this is reaching outside the co-op and doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's correct. And I like your idea of matching funds, right? So that could be one modification of the proposal that, for every $1 million that they get in investment money, the co-op puts in some multiplier of that in terms of rocks. So
that's great news. Happy to hear. I'm wondering if maybe getting the input of some of the community, maybe not everybody because it would get a little hectic, but select people who have more experience with structuring things would be beneficial for the co-op. I'm thinking, if not myself, maybe someone like Mernal, who, I mean, he seems to bring good experience to the table to be an extra set of eyes and ears. My other question to you, Greg, is there any update on the search for a CEO at Holdings?
There's lots of activity. I can't speak to that right now. But there's been a lot of good forward progress there. But we haven't signed any deals yet, so I can't speak directly to it, and that's really up to Holdings to disclose.
And what about input from community on some of these new exciting structuring deals from select people who may have good ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all ears, right? I mean, typically, here's the way I feel about it. Radical inclusion. I welcome comments from everyone, and then typically what will happen is that people self-select. There's not quite so many people who are feels such a strong position with respect to that they voice an opinion. Some people are more interested in making sure the bits work. Some people are more interested in making sure that the community is functioning smoothly, and some people are more interested in these kinds of structured deals. And so I'm open to comments from anyone. And if the load gets too large, then I'll cry uncle and say, hey, we gotta structure this a little better. But typically, I would prefer to have more input than less input.
Sweet.
Cool. So I think that's everything, unless there are other things that people want to talk about. I know I really need to jump off soon because I have to head over to the airport. But if I guess the meeting can continue if people want to keep talking.
I just want to say that we're planning the governance conference for February. Tampa or Denver have been proposed. You can vote in the governance topics channel on Discord. There's a governance meeting at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. Please feel free to attend.
Sweet. Thanks so much, Jim. I really appreciate that. I would love it. Yeah.
Before you jet to the airport, check your PMs in the chat.
Okay. Let me see what's going on here. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thanks very much. I will definitely reach out.
And also the permission is important.
Yes, understood. Understood.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. As always, it's good fun, and I continue to be astounded by the progress we're making. So, and I will be on. We'll be back in town, and I'll be available for the next community hangout. So see you then.